The summer of the Mariposas. The spider. The prettier the spider, the more poisonous it is. Chapter 9. I passed out even as I called out to La Larola. She awakened me when I guessed to be a few minutes later. Then, with ghoulish wails, as might be expected, but as a mother would wake up her beloved child, she sat at the edge of the bed and called my name softly, gently, and stroked my hair. Odelia, wake up, Midada, she whispered with maternal warmth. I can't, I said, opening my eyes slowly. They felt heavy and swollen with sleep. You have to, she said softly. It's important that you get up and purge yourself this sweet emptiness. My stomach was aching dully, and my head felt like it was wrapped in layers and layers of gauze. Something's wrong. I don't feel well, I complained. Everything around me looked foggy and dark. Odelia, I need you to drink this. La Larola lifted my head off the pillow and put a warm glass to my mouth. Drink, child. Your life depends on it. It took all of my strength to open my mouth and sip the warm liquid in that glass. It was bitter and tasted like rancid grapefruit juice. Cringing, I started to spit it out, but Lillarella coaxed me until I swallowed the rest of it. Suddenly, I felt it, the need to puke. I flipped the sheets aside, jumped out of bed, and ran into the adjoining bathroom. My rubbery legs almost gave way under me. I reached the toilet just in minutes to empty the vile contents of my stomach into it. What did you give me? I asked. I turned on the bathroom light and rinsed my mouth in the sink. I was so weak, I had to rest my upper body on the vanity. I've never been so sick in my life. I felt like something ill was festering in my stomach, and my head felt like a piñata stuffed with cotton balls. It's Cecilia's sweetness, Lalarola explained. It took control of you. The goddess sent me to give you a little bit of help, to make you expel it. We need to wake my sisters. I made my way to the bed and sat on the edge because the room was still spinning a little. Where can I get more of that you gave me? Come, follow me. Lalarola commanded from the doorway. Now that I noticed more than my own sickness, I saw that her hair was not white anymore, but dark and just as disheveled as it had been when I first seen her on the riverbanks. Her eyes were deep hollows and her cheeks were gaunt, but she wasn't scary. She just looked like a tired woman. Again, with a wave of her hand, the door opened and Lillarilla went through it. She was the only one who could help me now, so I followed her out of the bedroom. She walked down the stairs without making a sound. My own feet felt as light as feathers as I stepped over the floorboards, and I wondered if it was her miraculous tonic making me feel so weightless and swift. Quietly, we made our way through the spacious living room and past the formal dining room. Guided by the light coming from the far end of the house, Lalarola stepped just short of entering the kitchen. We stood hidden in the shadows of the hall, Lalarola in front of me, with me looking over her shoulder. Someone was moving around in the kitchen. Who's that? I asked quietly so as not to be heard. Cecilia and soon Gloria in all her spectral splendor, Lalarola whispered, and an ancient, haggish woman walked into view. This is her true form. The woman you see by day is an illusion reflected by the sunlight. It is created by the poisonous she mixes in the kitchen and then secretly adds to her special treats. It seemed unreal to me, but the woman in the kitchen was wearing the same clothing Cecilia had worn that morning. Her hair, however, was as gray and dusty as moth wings, and her sagging, wrinkled skin almost hanging off her face like a worn leather sack. She was grinding out something hard in a big black three-legged mortar. The machica's leg kept thumping against the table, making an ominous rhythmic sound. Her discolored tongue poked in and out of her prunish mouth, and she puckered and twisted her craggy lips as she grounded the coarse white substance into powder with a big fat pestle, just like the one Mama uses to make her homemade salsa. What is she doing? I asked. Getting ready for tomorrow, Lalarola whispered, pushing me deeper into the shadows of the hall. Cecilia is baking for you and your sisters. You have become her special pets. But that wasn't any ordinary baking Cecilia was doing in there, because unlike Mama, she wasn't swallowing any of the powdery concoctions herself as she tasted. Instead, every so often, she would test its consistency by rubbing a pinch of it between her thumb and her forefinger, put a little on the tip of her tongue, and immediately spit it out. When she was done grinding the unusual ingredient, she spooned it fine white particles into a miniature sheave and dusted the top of 4 freshly baked pies with it. What is that? Some kind of sugar substitute? I asked, touching Lalarola's shoulder to get her attention. To be sure, Lalarola whispered, turning to look at me. Its sweetness comes from the seeds at the heart of the chiconota plant. It is a sedative, more potential than any sleeping pill you can buy at Faminka. Do you mean? I started. Yes, Ordelia, Lalarola whispered more quietly than before. She is medicating you and your sisters, sweetening your thoughts, dusting your dreams with sugar distivda, so sweet and satisfying, you'll never want to wake up for fear of never feeling this happy again. Those pies are meant to keep you here forever. Oh my goodness, I whispered. I couldn't believe it. I had put my sisters' lives in the hands of a witch. It was like something out of a storybook, like Hansel and Gretel finding the gingerbread house in the woods. I should have remembered Mama's advice and been more wary. I should not have accepted food from a perfect stranger, but in this day and age, who would have thought fairy tales could come to life? Even those tales of razors and Halloween candy are just urban rumors. No one would have suspected Cecilia, not Mama, not me, but especially not my sisters. They relied on me to keep them safe, and now I had to do just that. We have to do something. We can't stay here. For now, all we can do is wait, Lularella said. She will be done soon. Come, we must hide and wait for her to leave. We hid behind the French panels in the living room and waited. Lularella was right. Cecilia was done within minutes. She turned off the lights and left the kitchen. When she was gone, we were sure she couldn't hear us. We crept into the kitchen. Lularella removed the lids from the footed pie dishes, picked 2 of them up, and pointed to the others for me. I took the third and fourth pie, and we snuck outside quietly. Quietly, we walked across the lawn, all the way to the back of the yard, past an old orchard, where we came across a long row of pig pens lined up behind a small weather beaten barn. Pig slop, she said as she emptied the pie dishes into the trough inside the first pen. Go on, they won't bite you. Won't they get sick? I asked, still holding the pies in my hands. Not any more than you did. The potion's not meant to kill, just keep you loopy and happy all the time, Lullarola whispered, taking the pie from me and throwing them next to the others herself. The worst that can happen is they'll sleep through the day tomorrow. Now, about your sisters. They're going to be groggy in the morning and probably won't want to get up. You'll have to give them some jolta juice. I followed Lillarola along the garden paths that meandered around the backyard, winding in and out and around each other. That bitter stiff that made me throw up? I asked. See. She bent over and examined a dark, spidery plant growing along the fence to the left of the house. You only need a few leaves, this much. You'll have to soak them in warm water for an hour. Then, when the water turns purple, you take the sprigs out and make your sisters drink the potion. They only need a few sips. It's a strong remedy, so don't let them ingest too much. But what if I do it wrong? I asked. Why can't you stay and give it to them yourself? You have to have faith, Odelia, Lillarella said, putting her hand on my cheek in a motherly caress. You come from a long line of tratas, healers of the people. Your Abdullah Remiz has been using her gift all her life. When the time comes, you'll know how exactly what to do with this. Abdullah Vendentes is a Cantiaras? I remember now. She showed me her garden once, I said, taking the sprig of jolti, turning them over in my hands and bringing them up to my nose for a quick whiff. This looks like Yumidia, only it's darker and more potent by the smell of it. Yes, Lillarola said, smiling at me. It's a primitive herb dating back to an ancient time, before the fall of the beautiful Tintinentas, Lillarola said. It is what we gave our inchulas, our little ones, when the mal air had crawled in through the windows at night and bewildered them. But that was before the river ate my children, before the argument with Haman, when we used to be a family. I'm sorry, I whispered, my heart suddenly aching for her, and I wondered if this sadness, this pain that seemed to overwhelm Lillarola was what Mama felt after Papa left, when she went to bed at night and cried alone in the dark. Did she miss having a family then? Was it the family and not Papa that she mourned? Had we misjudged her sorrow? I knew she was missing us now, afraid she would never see us again. The guilt of it stabbed my heart as I considered all these new facts, and I felt a great pain in my chest. Standing next to Lillarella in the darkness, I suddenly felt ashamed. Come, Lillarella said, rubbing my arm with her cold, dead hand. There is no time for regret. The beautiful dawn, La Aurora, will be here before you know it. You must prepare yourself for the confrontation that will ensure with her arrival. It will take more than cleverness. It will take courage to get away from this sorcerer. Lalarola walked away from me then, and I watched as she disappeared into the darkness. Suddenly cold, I ran back up to the house and tiptoed upstairs to the bathroom in my room. I put the springs of Jonatil in the glass of warm water, hid it under the sink, and then slipped back into the blue room. I didn't go to sleep, though. I stayed wide awake, staring at the full moon outside the wide arched windows next to the bed. I never noticed it before, but the silhouette of a woman was outlined in the brightness of the moon. Her hair was flowing in the wind, and it appeared to be looking back at something or someone behind her. I felt I could learn something from the woman in the moon. From now on, I would look over my shoulder at every turn. I would make sure I knew who or what was lurking around me, waiting to harm us when we least expect it. For many people in the world were not who they claimed to be. The evil dwelled where you least expected it. It had certainly been that way with Cecilia, the beautiful butterfly who had turned out to be a poisonous wasp. The moon made me think about Mamma, too, looking over her shoulder, crying for her loss, waiting for the day when she would see us walking through the door again. I knew she was frightened for us, because even with as much as crying as she had done over Papa the last few months, I could tell this crying was different. When she looked into the camera in the interview and begged for our safe return, I could see how much not knowing where we were or if we were even alive was killing her. I'm sorry, I whispered to the moon before I closed my eyes and cried for Mama as I faced my guilt. A few hours later, when the dawn started to break over the horizon outside my window, I did as Lillarola advised. I tried waking up the girls, but they were dazed and disoriented and wanted only to be left alone, to linger in bed a little longer. I forced them to drink the jolta juice. They coughed and complained about the bitter taste before they ran one by one into the restroom and threw up the nastiness in their stomachs. After the initial side effects wore off and they had stopped cursing my name, I told them what I had discovered that night before. I made them promise not to listen to anything Cecilia said to them. Then we all got our things together and made our way downstairs to face the Bruja. Cecilia, looking like a vibrant Mariposas in a purple tunic, her hair blossoming with the sprigs of lavender, was vaulting about the kitchen, looking confused and agitated. What's the matter? I asked, as if I didn't know what's wrong. Oh, nothing, she said, smiling nervously. I woke up late and I just don't know what to make you for breakfast. How about some more of the sweet bread from yesterday? I think there's still some left. No, thank you, I said, trying not to let my emotions show on my face. We have to get going. Our grandmother is waiting for us. Here it is, Cecilia sing-songed as she pushed a tray of day-old sweetbread across the counter. Delia pushed the tray back towards Cecilia. We're not hungry. Here, Peta, have a piggy. It's delicious, Cecilia said, picking up the front end of a piggy and waving it in front of the girls while she made cute little snorting noises. Peta tried to step back, but she faltered in her resistance. Cecilia took her face in her hand and tried forcing the sugary treat into her mouth. Peta flayed her arms and grunted from behind clenched teeth, resisting the witch's poison. Let her go, Velia screamed. She doesn't want any, I shrieked, pushing the tray of sweetbread off the table. It clattered to the floor, starting Cecilia, who turned around to look at the mess in a wide-eyed amazement. Now look what you've done. Cecilia's voice suddenly changed. It was no longer sweet and mellow, but menacing and intimidating. I had a feeling the rest of the girls were about to meet the real Cecilia, and it wasn't going to be pretty. Peta ran into Janae's waiting arms, and we all stepped back. I stood in front of the girls, ready to protect them from the witch's rage. You've ruined everything, she screeched as we huddled together in the corner of the kitchen closest to the door. Now pick it up and eat it, Or else. Or else what? I asked. You'll put us under a spell? Do you have some magical words, some curse you plan to use on us now that we won't eat your medicated sweetbread? Are you crazy? Cecilia asked innocently, her face twisted into an indigent expression that was too fake to be effective. That's right. We know what you're doing, I said, my voice cracking momentarily, but we're too smart to be lulled to sleep by your lies anymore. I saw you baking last night. I saw you put into those pies, but you're wide awake now, and we're not going to eat anything you try to feed us. That's why we gave those tortoises to your pigs. You don't believe me? Go see for yourself. Your pigs are probably snout down in the mud by now. You're being ridiculous, Cecilia scoffed. I didn't put anything into the sweetbread. Now clean it up before I get really mad. No, you clean it up. We're not slaves. Well, Juanita yelled. Cecilia lifted her left arm with her palm wide open, ready to slap her. What are you going to hit? What? Are you going to hit her? I asked. Not while I'm alive. Then, to my point, I unshithered my butter knife from the marble stand and wheeled it in front of her face. Now listen carefully and don't interrupt me. If you don't help us get home, we're going straight to the cops when we leave here and make you wish you had. You see, PETA here is very good at crying. She can make anyone feel sorry for her. Not that she would be pretending to cry. She's scared enough as is. Peter was sobbing, even now, into Juanita's brace. And there's enough evidence in this house and in our veins to prove that you drugged us. Braced against the counter, Cecilia eyed the knife and then us, taking our determined faces. She slumped back, defeated. What do you want me to do? We need the keys to your car, I demanded. I don't have, Cecilia began, but I didn't let her finish her thought. Don't mess with me, I threatened. This is a very nice house you've got here. Too nice to belong to a lowly police officer. Your husband has money. I'm sure there's a car parked somewhere. And if there isn't, Cecilia's eyes were brimming with tears, and suddenly she looked ancient. I resisted feeling sorry for her. What if this was another of her tricks? Like I said, we'll call the police. We'll tell them we were abducted and brought here where you've been feeding chicholas powder until we were almost out of our minds. I'm sorry, Cecilia said, hanging her head. I didn't want to hurt you. I was only doing it because I have no family, no husband, no children to play with. It was my dream to have daughters, many of them. But things went wrong for us long ago. My husband's anger, they angered the ancient ones, and I've been paying for it ever since, doomed to dwell in this empty shell of a house. When you leave, you will see it for what it really is, a ruin from the past. As for a vehicle, I don't have one. Really, I don't. I don't have any money either. Everything I need, everything I have carved out of the dirt with these tired old hands. She's lying, Velia said from behind me. Don't believe anything she says. Let's just go, Juanita said, her jaw affirmed. She's not going to help us anyways. Oh, yes, she will, I said, reaching up to spin Lelro's ear pennant almost violently before Cecilia, Aztec queen, Tanez, holy mother of all mankind. Give us your magical assistance. Make this witch tell the truth so we can get to Abdullah's house. At my words, Cecilia fell under the spell of the spiraling circles of the earrings. Her pupils were so dilated that her eyes glittered and shone, becoming giant orbs of darkness. The witch's eyes and head bobbed side to side, following the light emanating from the ear pendant, which, like a cobra, follows the movement of the chairman's flute. That's some talent you've got there, Velia whispered. I was just hoping it works, Juanita said, I pushing the twins back. They all backed up, widening the space between us and Cecilia, and I advanced on her. I turned my head to the side so that the revolving rings could work their magic to their full potential. Tell us how to get back home, I demanded of the witch. I can't help you, Cecilia said. The ancient ones have decreed it. I can't leave this place. I am to dwell on this island in the desert for the rest of time. It's my fate, my doom. But I know someone who can help you. The old fortune teller, Teresa. She lives in the Casero, the hill behind the house. She has the gift, even though she has eradicates, she can see beyond our limitations. Is this a trap? Are you sending us to another sorcerer? Is she evil like you? Your kind? I pushed the tip of the butcher knife against her jugular vein. The movement felt foreign to me, but we need to know. I didn't like the harshness in my voice, but I was desperate to save my sisters. The faster we got out of there, the better. Tell the truth, old witch, or I'll cut your throat, and then you won't have to dwell here anymore. Even as the cruel words left my mouth, I felt terrible about their callousness. No, it's not a trap. The best thing you can do is to see her. Teresa won't hurt you. She works only for good. It is her wisdom that finds the lost and returns the wicked. If she's a witch, how can she help us when you can't? Delia asked. Teresa is not a witch, Cecilia protested. She's a prophet, a seer. She'll know what to do. If anybody can help you, she can. You must go. Take the white goat in the barn. The young capitera as a gift for her troubles. She will be glad to receive it. Walk along the empty bed of the dry creek. Her house is 2 miles beyond the crest. There was a moment just after we tied a rope around the goat's neck and were pulling it out of the barn that I wondered if we wouldn't be better off just walking to the next town. Sure, it was hours away, but then we'd be sure we were in a real world and not some whacked out fairy tale wormhole. Nevertheless, this felt right to me, like I was taking the path I was meant to take to bring my family together, the one Lullarilla had told me about just 2 days ago at the river. I didn't know how I knew, but I was sure of it. Cecilia's lie about one Cecilia didn't lie about one thing, at least not after I hypnotized her, of forced her to tell us the truth. When we walked away from the house and started to climb the path with the goat in tow, we were dared to turn around and look back at it. What we saw was not the same house we had believed we had inhabited, if only for a day. The dwelling at the bottom of the Cerros was an old shack beyond repair, just a few drier, weather-worn boards leaning haphazardly against a crooked frame, showing daylight through the cracked furniture within. For a moment, I felt sorry for the old, broken-down woman whose loneliness had turned her into a brita, a fate worse than death, a fate I wouldn't wish on anyone, least of all, Mama. But then the earring spell must have broken, because Cecilia, looking as old and wretched as her house, hobbled out of her shack, thrusting a fist in the sky and screaming, we would pay for threatening her. What happened to her? Billy asked, dwelling on Delia's arm and pointing at Cecilia. Whew! Someone got a wicked makeover. Delia said, bursting into peals of laughter. Cecilia let out another horrific scream before she yelled back at us. Don't laugh at me, you horrible brats. You have no respect for authority. But don't think you're going to get away with this. Shut up, you old nasty old witch, Juanita screamed back, bending over at the waist to shout as loud as she could. You deserve everything you get. Run, run as fast as you might, Cecilia yelled at us. But you won't get far. No one leaves here without my permission. No one, absolutely no one, is allowed to mock me. Oh, we're so scared, Velia and Dia taunted. A cranky old witch is after us. Whatever should we do? Whatever shall we go? Lillarola's words of warning echoed in my ears. You and your sisters must remain pure of heart on this journey, Odelia. Be courageous, but remember to also be noble, and everything will be all right. I hoped it wasn't too late for me to heed her warning. I had to minimize the damage we might have already done. Stop it, I said, grabbing each of the twins by an arm and pulling them back to follow me. There's nothing she can do to harm us now. She's a broken old woman. No need to torment her. Come on, old woman. What are you waiting for? Juanita yelled from behind me, to which Cecilia responded with a blood-curdling wail that made us all stop. Come on, give it your best shot, children of the dark, children of evil. Your mother has been humiliated. Come to me now. Come back home. Punish these insolent girls. Unleash your wrath upon them. Make them suffer. Avenge my wounded pride, Cecilia hollered. She lifted up her arms to the sky and screeched. The act made thunder explode in the distance and lightning flash all around us as sinister black clouds began to swirl directly overhead. It was enough to make us all run away as fast as we could up the hill without looking back for fear of the evil Cecilia had sent upon us.